Hey, Paul Griffin here from Gator Grooves, my drum studio in St. Augustine, Florida. One thing that I like to teach all my students is how to maintain their drums. And as part of their lessons, I offer like snare drum cleaning and head changing and tuning at whatever point that it'll benefit a student. Usually, right when they buy a drum set, a lot of times the parents will ask me things about drum sets and if things are good deals or not. A lot of times I'll tell them, okay, once you get the drum set, let me come and check it out. I'll usually give a lesson at their house instead of at my house. That way I can see what they have. And in some cases, I'll actually bring some of their pieces home and maintain them, change heads, or do a complete overhaul if I need to. I've found out a lot about weather in different parts of the country. I used to live in Wisconsin, and you could leave drums, pretty much anywhere year round, and you wouldn't have any issues really with them. But in Florida here, where the weather is very humid a lot of drums are stored in garages and outside, or even in the car overnight after gigs and stuff like that. And after a short period of time in the humidity, it takes a toll on the chrome or anything made of steel. I've suddenly realized the importance of using stainless steel and other materials than just regular steel in a lot of these drum parts, because you get a lot of issues with the chrome plating and things just from the moisture in the air attacking the metals. So basically, I've got a drum part in my kitchen. This is a Yamaha Musashi snare that I just got my hands on, used, 13-inch, really sweet drum. And I'm just doing my standard thing, changing the heads, taking the drum apart, making sure there's nothing funky going on with the shell, or making sure that the hardware is all, attached and no loose screws or anything on the inside. Checking out the bearing edges, making sure they're smooth. I'll run a piece of fine sandpaper over these just to make sure they're smooth before I put new heads on. Checking out the bearing edges, looking for a snare bed on the bottom of the snare shell. And actually, one of my students' drums, I have a part right now, I found there's no snare bed cut in the shell at all. So I'm gonna add that myself. And hopefully that drum will sound a lot better, because it sounded horrible and it wasn't even very functional. So you always got to know what you're working with, and your instrument, just like any other instrument, take it apart, experiment with it, change the heads, learn how to tune it and get the sound that you want, because then you're just going to be a lot happier with your instrument. Okay. So anyways, this is a drum, and learn about the different options you have. Okay, snares. Look at the snare wires. Make sure they're straight, nothing's bent and out of shape where you need to cut it out. You're not going to get a good snare sound unless your snare wires are nice and flat and true like this. Okay. If you have one that's bent, you can take a pair of wire cutters and actually cut it out of there, get rid of it, rather than allowing it to buzz erroneously. Okay, and the other thing is like options. I actually did a study a few years ago on these plastic tabs versus the old-fashioned strings, nylon strings to hold snares on. And I found that using strings, if used the right way, will actually get you a more consistent snare sound than these. So I'll probably replace these with strings. Lug screws, make sure your lug screws aren't really funky. Make sure they should have some kind of oil lubrication on them. Minimum, just squirt some WD-40 on them, or if you have some really lightweight lubrication oil, or even dry lube. Drums that are in really bad shape, I'll actually take all the hardware off, like I've done with this garage. I'm going to show you in my garage workshop right now. And periodically I'll set up a little workshop in my garage. I've got a few drum sets out here that I need to overhaul that I've purchased in the last 6 months or so. But I will take and actually soak the hardware in this rust remover, which works pretty darn good. Like 1 or 2 days, you can remove pretty serious rust from parts. And a lot of these screws were just really coated in rust. So getting those cleaned up. And this is a student's drum. So once I get the rust removed, I'm gonna clean this hardware up, dry it all off, lubricate it, and put it back on the drum. And some screws I'm actually gonna replace because they're just rusted too badly. Okay, and this is the shell that I found does not even have a snare bed in it. It's a no name brand snare. So it's inexpensive drum. I don't want to sink a lot into this, but I think with some just TLC, the snare will be a really good snare for my student once I get it back together and everything working properly on it. The rims, typically you'll find, you know, a lot of pitting related to the humid weather in Florida here. And so I'm cleaning those up. A lot of times I'll use WD-40. I'll use the rust remover. I've got some chrome car wheel cleaner. That works pretty good. I'll use Windex, basically to clean everything up, try to remove any rust and grime. If it's really bad, I'll use steel wool or aluminum foil and kind of try to remove the rust like that. But basically, yeah, take it apart, learn how it works, put it back together, use different options to put it back together to get the best sound you want. Learn your drum, learn your instrument, and learn how it's built and how to make it sound better. Usually snare drums get the most abuse out of all the drum set things, I find, just because they're used for different things. And yeah, so snare drum is a great place to start. And then, you know, do your toms, your bass drum, all the same things. Just take them apart, put new heads on them. You're gonna find you're gonna get so much more satisfaction if you can get the sound you like out of the instrument, rather than living with it the way somebody else had it or abused it. So, all right. So good luck, and like and subscribe, please, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.